Boys and girls, ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Clutch Conversations. It's your boy Mike. We're back at you one more again, live on a Thursday night. Man, it's been a long week, but it's been a quick week, man. Happy to be here tonight with each and every one of you, man. The show gonna be super dope, man. As you know, we got Jason from Kittinger Reptiles, we got Barry Swope from Elusive Propagations, and we got a surprise guest, man. It's gonna be real fun, man. We're gonna get into some good conversation, and obviously we're gonna touch on the topic, talk about this ball python pyramid scheme stuff. Definitely looking forward to this conversation, man. It's guaranteed to be a dope one, guaranteed to be a fun one. But before we get to the show, big shout out to my lovely wife, Takara. Y'all make sure y'all show us some love in the comments, and don't stop there. Make sure you show the channel some love as well. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and smash that notification bell so you can get notifications each and every time we drop a video here on the channel. Appreciate the love, appreciate the support. Where can you find us? Check us out on Morph Market. Just had a few auctions wrap up, man. I got to hit some folks up after the show so we can settle all that, man. Definitely got some nice snakes posted and more to come. So definitely check us out on Morph Market. Check us out on IG on both pages, Herp Collectors and Herp Collectors Network. Give us a follow if you're not already following us. And also check us out on Facebook. And then also Clutch Conversations, along with the entire Herp Collectors Network catalog, is available on all major podcasting platforms. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and more. Definitely check us out, man. Be sure to follow, rate, and review. And also check us out on the website, clutchconversations.com. We appreciate the love, appreciate the support. Speaking of support, if you're involved with this hobby in any shape, form, or fashion, please be sure to support both US Art and US Art Florida. The link for both organizations is in the description of this video. Definitely, if you don't have a membership, make sure you go get your membership. Anytime you can donate, make sure you donate. When you go into these big shows and they're having the US Art auctions, definitely chip in, attend, show support, and make sure you tell everybody, man. Tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend about both these organizations that's helping protect our rights as reptile keepers. Appreciate that. Man, we just over 2 weeks away. Atlanta, Georgia, the Southeast Reptile Expo, February 15th and 16th is the place to be. All kinds of people from all over the country going to be there. It's going to be some super dope vendors in the building, man. Definitely looking forward to this. It's going to be my first show actually vending snakes, and we double dipping because we podcasting too. Vending with the homies, Jason from Ancestral Royal Pythons, Unc from Weddlemore Constrictors, and Justin from Armless Angels Ball Pythons. So make sure you check us out, man. We're gonna have a little end cap. It's gonna be real tip top. It's gonna be real dope. Also doing the podcast, the homie Ro and the homie Brian, they're gonna be podcasting with me as well, man. So it's definitely gonna be a lot of fun. Make sure you check out all these dope vendors that's gonna be there. We got Dragon Soul, the homie Pat, Pastor Pat himself. We got Kittinger Reptiles. We got the guest. He gonna be there. It's gonna be super dope, man. It's gonna be a lot of people there. So definitely make sure you tap in. It's gonna be a blast, man. It's going down in ATL February 15th, February 16th. Be there or be square. And if you're not there, make sure you check out Clutch Conversations and check out the homie Keys and Wiz and the homie Craig on the Whiskey Bomb Network. They're gonna be there podcasting as well, man. It's gonna be a blast. Make sure you check us out this Saturday. Me and the homie Matt. We got Double Clutch coming up for you, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time this Saturday. Keeping it a buck, man. We're going to be talking about some uncomfortable truths in the reptile industry. So definitely make sure you tap in for that. Guaranteed to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to seeing y'all out there. And looking forward to you joining the Double Clutch Patreon. If you have not joined the Double Clutch Patreon, please be sure to join it ASAP pronto, shawty. Looking forward to you jumping in there, man. We have a lot of fun, so definitely come check us out. If you missed this past Monday's episode of Conjure Corner, make sure you tap in and go check out the replay. Jason from Legless Luxuries was in the building, so make sure you check that out. And unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, we had to push out Grow House for 2 weeks. And so that's coming out in 2 weeks. It's going to be every other Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Definitely looking forward to that. And let's pay some bills, y'all, man. We'll be right back after this word from the sponsors.
Known for his
Art comes in many forms. And on Miss Angels, it comes to life. In life, success doesn't come to you. You go to it. In this game, forward thinking is the key to innovation and staying relevant. Plan your work and work your plan. Lose yourself in the art. Lose yourself with wetter morphs. Join Canova's Patreon today and unlock hundreds of hours of exclusive educational content designed to help you run a successful ball python business. Get insider information on the latest genetics, hot new combos, and market trends. Enjoy guidance from the world's leading ball python designer. Memberships are currently available up to the student tier, a tier that includes a 5% discount on all animals. I've been in the Canova Patreon for almost 4 years, and it's been worth every dime. So don't delay. Join the Canova Patreon today.
Big shout out to the sponsors. Big shout out to the sponsors. Let's see who we got in the chat tonight. Lots of people in the chat, man. The chat going crazy. Big Aaron from Batter Up Balls, man. Appreciate you coming out, homie. We got Dwight, the Pie Man, in the building. What's good? We got Morph Alv, Mike Duval in the building. What's up, bro? Appreciate you coming out. We got Mr. 2% himself, Sammy, the Pink Panther. Appreciate you coming out. The homie Brian from Heathen Hatchery, Double Clutch Patreon, Herp Collectors Network, all that. And of course, 352. Appreciate you coming out. Static Morphs in the building. Big Ed, what's up? We got Lucky's Pythons in the building. We got Mr. Malice himself, the homie Ash. What's up, bro? Appreciate you coming out. KMB Reptiles, Bit Mac. Appreciate you coming out, man. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple weeks, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We got the homie Dunn Dada in the building, Uptown Exotics. Y'all make sure y'all check out Everyday Keepers on the Whiskey Bomb Network. And speaking of the Whiskey Bomb Network, we got the homie Keys in the building. What's good? Appreciate you coming out. Pip Set, what's good? Appreciate you coming out, Ashley. They making some dope stuff over there at Pip Stalkers, man. So definitely check them out. Love the hypo stuff. So you know I'm already biased, but it's some super dope stuff. So definitely check it out. It's a Snapping Turler. Appreciate you coming out. We got the Cuz in the building. Fred MTZ Pythons. Appreciate you coming out. And we're gonna stop it right there. We're gonna kick the intro, and then we'll be right back here in a few seconds.
Baby, won't you listen to me? I got that flavor. I know you're dying to feed. I ain't no dancer, just got some hip in my feet. Now throw your hands up. Ooh, you bring the lighter, I got the fuse. You make a fire, I'll add the fuel. Follow my lead, just watch your shoes. Gotta turn the heat up. This cool. Who you know who looking like this for real? Who you know who looking like this? Who you know who looking like this for real? Who you know who looking like this? Who you know who looking like this for real? Who you
Episode 151, Ball Python Pyramid Scheme or nah? What's good, fellas? How y'all doing?
What's up? All right.
What's up? What's up? What's up, man? Good to see you. Good to see you.
How you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm gonna put y'all on the bigger screen so everybody can see the outfits, man. I'm doing pretty good, man.
Look, man, Florida crew got to represent.
Gotta represent for sure. When I saw y'all backstage, man, I was dying laughing. Yeah, I love it, man. What inspired the outfits?
I just can't do anything serious.
This is literally just, hey, Winston, you want to come over and get on the hot tub?
Yeah, well, I was supposed to deliver them some animals as is, and Barry was like, "Dude, you should jump on this podcast with us." And I was like, "Oh, only if we can get in the hot tub and take ridiculous pictures." And then one thing escalated to another. Now we're doing a podcast. So.
Nice. Y'all look like space age pimps.
I literally just grabbed the quickest thing I could grab that would be easy.
So you had all that on there?
I had too many props, dude.
If you've been to enough Daytonas, this is just Winston on a Saturday night.
What's the point of life if you're not going to have some fun with it, right? You know what I mean? It's
100%.
stressful all the time.
Yeah.
100%. So real quick, just in case it's somebody who in the chat now or somebody who come along later, everybody do some real quick introductions.
All right. Well, I'm Jason Kittinger, Kittinger Reptiles. So
I'm Winston Smith with WHS Reptiles.
And you got Barry Swope here. I just started Elusive Propagations, but I've been around forever. Just finally gone legit, I guess.
I know last time we was on the show, I think it was either before the show or maybe it was actually during our conversation. You had mentioned elusive. Is that kind of like how you came up with the name? Because they had been saying like the elusive Barry and stuff like that.
Yeah. So the whole Bob thing, Bob would come over, and I wholesaled a lot of stuff to Bob back in the day. So he'd be like, I got some stuff from Barry, but I ain't gonna show nobody who he is, So then he's all blurring my face out. It just became a thing. So I just kind of rolled with it because I thought it was funny.
Bob has a knack for branding.
Yeah.
So a knack for what? Branding?
Branding, yeah. Because as long as I've known him, I've called him the elusive Barry Swope, and I think it's because of Bob.
Yeah.
I've never even thought about why, but
I think that
why.
started around COVID, and he would come by and we'd hang out, and then it was always a picture of me like cut out or blurred or something,
How long have you guys known each other?
Me and Bob?
The group, you guys.
Actually, I've known Jason since like 1999, 2000-ish, when I worked I used to work at a wholesaler importer back in the day, and Jason was like in high school coming in with his biology teacher. They'd buy shit, resell it.
yeah, I think I was 16 then, 16 or 17.
So I've known Jason a real long time. Winston, maybe the last 6 years.
Yeah, 6 or 7 years. Yeah. We're in 2025 now, so I feel like 2016 to 18 in there. I met these guys, but I feel like I've known them forever because local reptile shows. You know what I mean? So it's like people that you're like, I know that guy, but you don't know him yet.
Yeah, 100%.
So
when did you get in?
I hung in there as long as I could. That shit was hot.
It is hard to listen.
Yep.
And then people will be able to recognize it.
I don't know. Am I supposed to be recognized? You're supposed to blur my face out.
You should have kept that.
Yeah.
Keep a blur on the face all day.
Keep like a disguise. No, I mean, I'm finally, I was always a behind the scenes breeder, like I've had multiple people sell things for me, and just, I'm too busy with work to really do this full time. So this is new to me, having the morph market and, trying to get this going, but I don't have a ton of time to put it all in,
Gotcha. So is that why you were more behind the scenes, just because you were busy, or is it just kind of like naturally how you prefer it to be?
Kind of both. I don't think I really like the spotlight or anything, but it just kind of evolved to where I am today. So I finally was like, I guess I'll brand myself. I still don't have a logo. I'm trying to figure that out. I'll meet people at shows who come in, they got 3 snakes, they got t-shirts, branding, all that stuff. And I'm like, I've been doing this since I was 12. I don't
That's exactly what I was about to say. Is almost the running joke is anybody that starts any small business, they've got the logo, they've got the promo, they've got the shirts, they've got the cards, they've got everything, they got the stickers, but they haven't actually done anything in the business yet. You know what I mean? So I feel like they're not doing it the wrong way.
Yeah. You definitely see a lot of that. I'm not gonna even lie. I got my logo pretty early. I got stickers. I got the whole 9. I used to always pass out like a lot of stickers. Like I would take a stack of stickers to shows, and I quickly stopped doing that. I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this. I just want to walk around and enjoy the show.
Well, it's not a bad thing to get your name out there. It's a good thing, but it's the most fun part of trying to do anything as a business is always kind of like making your logo, creating your identity, and then, but a lot of times people stop there. You know what I mean? And it's like they don't actually follow through with the rest of the work side.
Yeah, you definitely can't stop there. Like this industry, unlike like other industries, it definitely takes putting in a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I mean, between, like, for example, in my personal case, between the animals and just making sure all that stuff good to go, making sure the stuff with the shows good to go, it's a lot of work, and it keep you busy for sure.
Well, the amount of promotion that people like yourself are doing these days is, to me, it seems overwhelming. Like, I was really comfortable in that 08 to 2012, 2013 time slot. I was like, this amount of promotion, and it worked back then, was perfect for me.
I'm like, I didn't even do Facebook until maybe 6 years ago, when it was like everyone was going from Kingsnake to Facebook, and I was like, I guess I have to get one. I mean, I'm not that, like, Instagram, I'm like, why do we need 2 Facebooks? But everybody went to that, and I'm never going to hashtag something. I don't know how to do all that.
Yeah.
I'm 45 going on 60, it feels like.
Between the 3 of us, we were just praying that we got this computer to work.
Yeah. And Holly did everything freehand.
Yeah. You want to go outside and find some cool stuff, we're in.
Yeah.
Try to make a computer work. It's ridiculous.
I'm glad Holly was able to get you all right.
Yeah. Well, then we plugged the charger in, and then everything went black. I'm like, uh-oh.
How long you been in, Winston?
I've been breeding reptiles since 2004.
Okay.
But ball pythons, 2008, I would say, is when I first really started breeding ball pythons. And then 2009, I made my first like really significant purchase. So, which was a mimosa from Brock.
Okay.
But before that, I was pretty much mostly doing sand boas, leopard geckos, Amazon tree boas. I was deep into sand boas. I had a whole
word.
That was my original serious passion with reptiles, as far as like propagation goes, was sand boas. And then one day I went with a friend that, I was rolling my eyes like, of course you're getting a ball python, and they were like, well, do you want to go to Greg Graziani's with me? And I was like, oh, absolutely. Any chance to see any type of reptile breeding, facility of any kind. I'd never really had that chance. So I was like, oh, absolutely. So we went down there. My main interest was genetics, and in everything else I worked with, it was pretty slow going. There was a handful of recessives, especially with sand boas, with the Kenyans. There was a few morphs, but it was really delayed gratification. And when I went to Greg's, and he had the old school Vision, like clear tubs, in the the racks you assemble yourself. And so I'm looking through the tubs, and he had like normal, spider, pastel, bumblebee, killer bee, all in a stack. And I'm like looking through the side, and I'm like, hold on. You're telling me this is how quickly you can see the genetic return, as far as like making the visual combo. And I was hooked after that. I just wanted to play with the genetics.
Gotcha. So you said you picked up a mimosa first?
From the time I went to Greg's, I picked up some normals, I picked up some pastels. Okay, and I, like everybody else, got ripped off, bought things that were I bought hypos, bought some stuff that was supposed to be a het hypo and a super pastel back when that mattered, was not a super pastel, was not a het hypo. I got set back pretty far, and I dug myself into a pretty deep hole. And with the last amount of money I had, I dropped 10 grand on a mimosa from Brock. And in 9 months, I was out of the hole, which, you know, kind of speaking on the topic of the podcast, which is also a little bit why it irked me with that recent, you know, podcast that's been circulating. Because I'm like, there's advantages to this business. It's not all just BS.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to tap into that. Spoiler alert, like I agree with you, but I definitely want to explain why here in a little bit. So I know Barry, last time when we talked, you were telling me like you did like about, I don't know, 15, 20 clutches a year. Do you ever see yourself like growing out of that, or is it like bandwidth and you don't really want to get much bigger than that? You just kind of want to stay with like that small, powerful collection?
I wish I could be smaller, to be honest with you. I have about 91 tubs and then a hatchling. So between the different size tubs, I think I have 30, 70 tubs, and what are those other ones I have? The 20 rack. What's that? I always want to say 40s.
They come from me?
50s. I think they're 50 tubs, 50 series
tubs.
Yeah,
the 50, yeah.
20, 50 series tubs, and then, you know, the 30 or the 10 series tubs, and that's kind of it. You know, I mean.
Gotcha.
I've always had about this size collection, and I can't, with my day job and everything, I can't take care of more than this. But with recessives, this is how much stuff I need to bare minimum go. So I have a lot of rotation. A lot of things come in, they breed. All right, I'm moving on to the next generation. You got to go.
Heck yeah, it's definitely a lot of factors that go into like how big you can go. There's space, there's bandwidth, is money, is a lot of stuff that go into like how big you want to go and like where that sweet spot is for you.
Oh, the money never bothered me. I used to cash out the credit card like 20, 30 grand a year. It was I spent a lot of money in the beginning.
Yeah.
But it didn't bother me because I was buying things I wanted. So I don't know. I mean, another topic with that video that we're going to talk about later, but it's like I have a general interest. I don't 100% care if it makes money or not. Some stuff I just want. I mean, what I get recently, a leopard champagne hypo, like everyone doesn't want that, but I'm like, it's cool. I want it. Yeah.
Was it pretty bright?
Oh, it looks really cool. I mean, it's probably not going to work with half the stuff I do, but I'm like,
yeah,
I like it. I'll do something with it.
Well, I mean, I feel like we all have those animals. Yeah. I have a freakishly large adult female that's super cinnamon, super pastel, super vanilla. So I don't breed her. I haven't bred her in years. But I mean, she's around 6 foot, about 6'2". The last time we tried to measure, she's enormous. And, you know, I just hold on to her because I just love her. You know, she's just a phenomenal snake, you know. And whatever, I think what makes her that big is some kind of hormonal issue. Because anytime I did breed her, she would lay eggs and then also lay the full other set of undeveloped ovum with them every time. But yeah, we all have stuff that we just like.
Yeah, I never heard of that, but yeah, that's real interesting. So I know you guys are pushing some hypo puzzle stuff this year.
Yep.
No, we don't like that anymore.
Yeah,
we're getting
this
rid
is
you don't like it. If you want to get rid of it, hit me up.
Yeah, moving on. Been there, done that.
Yeah, I guess.
I feel like in this hobby, like anytime you hatch something new that you've never hatched before, it's just it really rekindles that fire. Like, you know, the hatching hypo puzzles this year, I was so geeked. Yeah. So just because I've never hatched them.
Oh, you brought him over that one time for me to sex him, and I was a little excited because I think you made more in your first year than I made.
To be fair, I did not need help sexing them. I needed help IDing them. Because there were leopard, yellow belly, and some other combos. So
yeah, he's like, I made puzzles. You got to tell me what the hell they are.
Yeah, because I'm like, I don't have an eye for this palette. This is my first year pulling combos, you know. So
you bringing some hypo puzzle stuff to the show, Jason?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to decide how much I want to bring. So, but I'll definitely have some there. So, a little variety, probably everything. So, everything that I produce variety-wise, you know, a few of them. So, we'll see.
Yeah, I definitely want to see some of that stuff. I love the hypo puzzle stuff for sure.
Yeah, I'm
So
thinking about bringing a whole table of it just for fun, but I don't know if it's the right show for it. But
they're phenomenal. They have they have great variability. What was interesting to me is early in the 2024 season, I was pairing the male that I got from Barry, and like as I'm like letting it go from my hands, looking at its like really orange belly, I was just appreciating the animal, and I was like, God dang, I love this thing. Whenever you get new morphs, it's just really exciting.
I got hooked on hypo a little while back, and I'm like, I don't know why it's so slept on. It doesn't ruin anymore.
Yeah,
not at all. I don't understand why it's so slept on either. I mean, that's changing a lot from when I first got in, like 5 years ago. I know, like at first, it was like super slept on, and people like talk trash about it and stuff like that. But I do hear more and more people kind of seeing the light. But I've always liked hypo, and I've pretty much always had hypo stuff in the collection. I think my 4th snake was a visual hypo, and I've been hooked on hypo stuff ever since. So I'm glad people seeing the light.
What's funny is I bought into hypo puzzle in 2015. I made my first ones in 2017.
Okay.
And nobody wanted them.
Oh, for real?
Or they didn't want to pay anywhere near, which at that time I think they were at 4,500 at that time too. I had a hard time moving the ones I had, and it just was like no one saw it yet, but I saw it and I was like, I don't understand what they're not seeing or why they don't want to make that big jump. But I'm glad I did it and kept with it because it finally came around, but I wanted to work it either way.
Honestly, as long as I've been in ball pythons, it seems like it's been that way. I was gonna say with recessives, but I've even seen it with codoms, but it's more common with recessives where a few people have the vision, they buy in early, and then it takes 3 to 5 years sometimes for the rest of the market to have a serious interest. So you kind of have to be prepared for that. It doesn't happen that way every time, but a lot of the times. And you just kind of have to be prepared to build your project out and then be ready to capitalize, when the market breaks.
Well, I also watched the puzzle gene I feel like it was around for like 10 years before that. And it was always with pastel. So I was like, I want nothing to do with the pastel part. And then he made
really on the trend.
He made some normal ones, and that's when I got excited. And then one year in Daytona, Sean had a hypo one there, and I said, I want the next one you have available. And he finally, I think he made 1.2 that first year, and I was able to get the male with 2 proven breeder double het females, which was really helpful to get me going where I'm at. So, I mean, but even with Orange Dream, that was kind of what I did before that. And I got into Orange Dream in 2011, right as Ozzy was trying to figure out the super thing. And seemed like I watched that gene forever and no one was really biting. And then that gene took off too. So, I mean, you just kind of have to go with what you like, and whether other people like it or not now, they will when you finally make something with it that, gets them to turn their eyes at it,
Heck yeah. So when you hatched those hypo puzzles and you was having a hard time moving them, was it the hypo that was turning them off, or was it the puzzle, or was it just hypo and puzzle?
Puzzle had a bit of a stigma at that point already, so people weren't sure what to do with it. But the hypo, they didn't see paying the extra for the hypo, which a regular puzzle at that time was maybe $2,000.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know. But
what was the stigma with puzzle back then?
The founder.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
say less.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about it. It's just
gotcha.
A lot of people didn't want to deal with it.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah.
That and at that time, I mean, most morphs that were sought after were color morphs. I mean, to be honest, like Clown was doing well, but it wasn't what Clown has been. You know what I mean? The last 10 years.
Well, that was probably around when Batman came out. So Clown was all people were talking about at that time.
Yeah, but Sean had them prior to you picking up.
No, he's had them forever.
Like, because I watched that project on on the side view, and it's like, I think people, especially at that time, were more scared away from new recessives, and pattern mutations, if they weren't a codom, just seemed like the market wasn't educated enough to appreciate it.
It took a lot longer to get your money back when you could buy one banana and make 1 million bananas and sell them, in 18 months. Well, breed it in 18 months and sell them in 2 years. You'd be selling bananas. So that's probably what's different about it. The recessive part, you got a 4-year project minimum.
That and at the time, a lot of people weren't thinking the way people think now, which is, oh, that's completely different than everything else. I'm going to go take this side quest out over here and then loop back into the main market when the rest of the market catches up with me in 4 years. Now a lot of people are thinking that way with these multi-gene recessives, plus you add in codom combos that you're shooting for. The odds are getting astronomical, but taking that path, when you hit, it'll be rewarding.
What do you think led to that shift in thought process?
I think it's just the evolution of the hobby. I really do. And Justin honestly did have a lot to do with it. I mean, a lot of the things that have shifted in this hobby, I'm not saying it's all just Justin, but he does a great job of compartmentalizing it and putting it out there to the rest of the hobby in a way that everybody can digest and understand, if that makes sense. And I feel like he was a good, a part of that. But then also, one thing about this hobby is you could be in it for 50 years. And one thing that will always remain the same is whatever you're seeing a lot of now, you're not going to want to see a lot of in 5 years.
Let me try to answer this real quick. Right. Social media is why all that changed.
Social media, what's
in short, like, when did everyone start Facebook snakes and everything? You know what I mean? Like,
so another way to say that is more interconnection within the hobby, which definitely grew our hobby.
Yeah, because then you're friending people who are into snakes, or you're in groups that talk about snakes so that, other new people can get in. I mean, back in our day, there wasn't anything. I mean, we had a local herp society, we had a pet store, and then we got lucky that we live in Florida, and Wayne Hill used to have the Daytona show used to be in Orlando, but we would go to that. And we had one show, and you would do a swap meet before your herp society show, once a month.
Barry and I used to go to the same senior center to go to herp society meetings, but we didn't know each other back then.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were
wow, small world.
Looking at newspaper classifieds, and then King Snake came out, and you went through King Snake and Fauna, and then and then all of a sudden you got social media and Morph Market. People are selling through social media. You've got it's a lot easier if I have a social media account and I have a bunch of friends who don't like snakes or don't care about them, and then I post cool snakes up. Some of them go, "Hey, what is that?" It spreads a lot faster, I guess. But social media, I think, changed a lot of this hobby.
Well, made everything more accessible, much more accessible.
Yeah. Very short time.
But it also made it more accessible to talk to other like-minded people. And when you have a lot of communication within a community, overall, I think the end result is going to be you're going to evolve the thinking, along the way. And I think that's what happened with, ball pythons and shifting the short-sighted views on recessives.
Yeah, 100%. Having people like who got like similar interests, and y'all like bouncing ideas off each other, you get to take from that person gets to take from you, and then just over time, like, it starts to be a compounding of impact to like the growth of the community. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Makes perfect sense.
And then now you have shed testing, which that was something I dreamed of back in the day. Like, that's gotta work out. I mean, one of these days we're gonna do this. And then it happened. And it's really cool. I mean, it's a little bit overwhelming at first, but I actually really like the concept of animal propagation and creating systems that work and doing it on a large scale. So at first it was a little intimidating, and now it's like, I feel it's very rewarding to try to maximize your collection through shed testing and create systems that work and keep track of all these little intricacies. And I'm loving it.
How much stuff are you shed testing? Like, are you only shed testing things you might hold back? Like, what's your strategy there?
So at first I was shed testing. So basically I would say all the logical babies that made sense to be shed tested. This was my first year separating hatchlings, trying to get that first shed perfect off of the animal. Not too wet, you know what I mean? Which also takes a lot more baby space. But I was shed testing, so things that would be held back, but also things for sale. Like I said, stuff that would make sense. You know what I mean? There's certain clutches where you don't really need to. But then somewhere in like the fall, I started, producing something weird. And then I realized like, oh, I'm going to shed test the parents. And then on one of those occasions, I needed to shed test the parents of this animal, which, I keep pretty good records. And I had one of the parents who shed tested that. And it just leads you down this like rabbit hole. And at this point, I think I've shed tested at least maybe half of the collection. And I'll probably end up doing the other half little by little as weird things come around. So.
Yeah, that's similar to like what I'm doing. Not timing wise, I haven't started like shed testing on the first shed yet. I just been shed testing on the second shed, and I just like I'll write myself a note on the card that I need the shed. That way I don't just kind of like randomly throw the shed away, and then I'll stack up some and then I'll send them. Like I just sent 6 sheds to Charlie the other day. All 6 came back hit too, so I was like, hell yeah.
Sometimes
like,
other times you just don't.
It definitely be like that sometimes. Yeah. Like, he was like, did you send me all known hits? I was like, nah.
Actually, Charlie sent me some negative results at one point, and I was like, thanks, Charlie, really appreciate that. And he's like, sorry to give you bad news. And I was like, it's not necessarily bad news. I would have kept half of those animals back
exactly.
for myself, wondering if they were going to prove out, and I was like, so it's actually just helpful data,
Yeah, it's better to know it ahead of time versus the alternative. Like it's some stuff that I would hold back, like regardless, but I would like to know if it's hit for something. Then there's other things. If it's not hit, I'm not gonna hold it back. It depends. And then as far as like stuff that I'm not gonna hold back, regardless, it really kind of depends on if it makes sense to shed test for that. Like if I just got like something like, let's say a normal posset clown or something crazy, that's a male, I'm definitely not shed testing that. Not even a female. I'm not shed testing that.
That's what I meant by like the stuff that makes sense to shed test. You know what I mean? Like sunset posset DG, or like, so I'm going to test that clutch.
Yeah, you probably test that one.
Yep.
You probably should definitely test that one.
I haven't shed tested anything yet, but I have 2 snakes sitting on that I need to.
He will give me the shed and I will send it.
They're 2 hypo-hybrids that could be puzzle or head puzzle, and they could be super OD, and I need to find that out, but I'm like just sitting on them because I'm too old school and lazy.
I told him to give me the sheds.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Yeah, it took me the longest to get my first round of sheds sent out. I finally did it. But after that, like now it's part of the routine, but it took me the longest. I was just sitting on sheds.
Yeah, they will pile up. My wife helps me package everything and send it, and like when they pile up too big, she's not the happiest. She's like, oh. And when you get the bill,
that's
when
not
you
fun
say,
either.
Yo, it's not, but it's well worth it.
But I agree 100%. It's definitely well worth it.
Yeah.
That peace of mind.
Well, I started doing all my shed tests. I started testing things that I'd already held back, that I'd raised up for a year and a half, planning to breed stuff that were posset clowns, posset desert ghosts, things like that. And then you go through and you test a lot of it, and half of the stuff wasn't hit, so it did save me a little bit of time. I mean, I've already raised it a lot, but at least I didn't go any further, and then I can move them out of the collection and try to, make sure I keep what I need and things like that, move forward.
Like that leopard spot nose posset puzzle that didn't prove out.
Yeah.
Raise it all the way up.
Yeah.
I will say, when shed testing first kind of came online, I first heard about like RGI, like very early. It was getting, we were coming into breeding season, and I had animals where I was like, well, I guess I could try this thing. And, but at the end of the day, I'd been doing it the same way so long. I was like, nah, I'm just good. It's close enough. I'm just going to make eggs. So, but yeah, I don't think there's any babies I'm holding back as possets that I'm not shed testing anymore. I mean, it just wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, unless the shed test didn't exist for that particular gene, but outside of that, the shed test exists. Yeah, it don't make sense not to. You kind of have to. Everybody else.
Well, I was gonna say, I hear people say, like you're saying, if the test doesn't exist. For one, I appreciate how much work people are doing to sequence a lot of morphs instead of just the ones that are recessive, or, you know, because people are like, well, why would I need a banana test? You can see banana. All right, but if you hit an ivory or just a multi-gene combo.
I have a super special combo that I can't tell if it's banana or not.
Yeah, or even a multi-gene combo. Like if you go back to the good old days of where everybody was trying to just make a white snake with faint squiggles, you know? It's like sometimes these days you don't mean to do that, but sometimes you accidentally do. And you know, you're going to want to know, is there pastel in there? Is there banana in there? Is there leopard in there? Because nothing's shining through. So I think that at the end of the day, once we have a genetic database of everything, it's just going to benefit everybody.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Hey guys, I want to take a quick commercial break before we get into the topic. And then we come back, we'll deep dive into the topic. But this is a good chance for a break, and then we can get into the topic without having to interrupt. We'll be right back.
Thanks.
Known for his innovative approach to genetic shed testing and top quality ball pythons, Grey Rider Reptiles also excels in exceptional customer service and responsiveness. With a quick turnaround time, Charlie ensures you get the service you want and need. Visit shedtesting.com to explore his offerings and experience the best in the business. Don't miss out. Head to shedtesting.com today and unlock the power of your breeding projects.
Peace and love, family. We invite you into the heart of our serenity, Ancestral Royal Pythons. At Ancestral Royal Pythons, we're not just breeders, we're nurturers of love and growth. Each of our high-end ball pythons is a tribute to the grandeur of the natural world and our dedication to quality. Reach out today and bring one of our creations into your home. This is Ancestral Royal Pythons. Your journey begins here.
Here's to the exciting world of ebony and ivory reptiles. From unforgettable parties and events to keeping and hatching some of the dopest reptiles in the reptile hobby, we're all about education, quality, integrity, and respect. Hit us up and see how we can help make your next project a reality. Experience ebony and ivory reptiles, where fascination meets fun.
Ebony and ivory reptiles.
Big shout out to the sponsors. They dipped on you, man. It was like, man, I'm tired of this. I don't want to talk about no pyramid scheme.
No. Ain't getting me caught up in one of them.
Running off to invest in a pyramid scheme over here.
Me and Winston we're selling Mary Kay now, starting our own pyramid schemes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah. So obviously y'all have seen the video and whatnot. And most of the folks out there probably have seen it by now as well. But I'm gonna definitely play it real quick. Hopefully this worked. Like I was telling y'all backstage, this is the first time that I've tried to do it this way. So let me know if y'all can hear it or something like that. I do got a backup plan in case this way don't work. So let's check out the video real quick.
Yeah,
so many pyramid schemes.
What is that?
Pyramid schemes people are falling into. I had someone going into a ball python pyramid scheme that I just talked to.
No way.
Yeah. So he buys 10 baby ball pythons from his friend.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you make money off of these ball pythons that are supposed to breed?
Okay, so hold on. You get 10 baby ball pythons, and then you pay somebody, you get the 10 baby ball pythons. Yep. And now what do I do with these baby ball pythons? How do I get pyramided in?
Well, how do you make money? What would you do to make money off of baby ball pythons?
I think you'd have to mate them and then sell 10 to somebody else.
Yeah. Now who's buying them?
People you know.
No. People that want to buy them so that they can breed them to sell them to people who breed them.
Okay.
Because people aren't buying them for pets. You go to a PetSmart for that. No one's buying from these guys.
Right.
You buy the baby ball pythons hoping they make kids so that you can sell them to others who want to make kids and sell to others. And he got sucked into that. But the pythons he bought have gone down 50% in value because apparently you can day trade. You can day trade the ball pythons on like a little market app.
There's a market app for day trading ball pythons.
Yeah.
So not only has somebody created a pyramid scheme of ball pythoning, right? Yeah. So you're ball pythoning, you're selling a few grams of ball python here, an eight ball python here, and then you But then the whole time, somebody's also, whoever engineered this fucking thing, also created an app where there's like almost a ball python coin market. So that's going up and down as well.
Yeah.
So you're basically driving around town with a backseat full of ball pythons, waiting for the market to go up enough.
Yeah.
So you can pull over and put a couple ball pythons on somebody's tab.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's my exit strategy.
Bring that up. What the fuck? What in the fuck is happening, man?
That's what I do all the time. I'm driving around constantly, truckload of cars.
Just stopping at the gas station, bro. You want this python?
Yeah.
So what's y'all initial thoughts on it, man?
At one point, he does make a line about something about like an 8-ball of ball python, and I was like, all right, that's great because we have an 8-ball. So
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny and ironic too.
When they look at it, actually are measured in grams.
Yes, and and back in the day when adult females were everything, it's like those grams mattered.
Yeah, I heard it was like $1 a gram back then, and like they would like feed the snake and get it real big, and then when you get it home, it'll take a dump and lose like 100 grams. Crazy like that.
I remember them days. Yeah. So one thing, like, so Theo Von has a big reach. He averages like 8 million downloads, you know, an episode. And I mean, Theo's just doing what he does there, which is just taking a subject matter that's thrown at him and making it funny. But that Caleb guy, I mean, his whole shtick is just shitting on everything. And, you know, I don't know if you've listened to any of his podcasts, but I had the misfortune of going down a rabbit hole of like, who is this guy? What's the context? And I mean, it's shit content. I mean, he gets people on and just berates them about how stupid they are on every episode. That's like what he does. So, I mean, this thing is flawed from jump. Obviously, the guy that was on his podcast, not the most knowledgeable. Definitely not the best representation for what we do, which always seems to be our luck.
Right.
But where do you want to start with that subject? Because I feel like I got a lot I can say about it.
Yeah. So I didn't know about Caleb Hammer or Theo Von, to be honest, until I saw that clip. Then I did some research, came across like Theo Von stuff, and also did some research and came across Caleb Hammer stuff. I did go back to the episode where he had the ball python guy on, where it was like the ball python guy and his wife. Like I almost felt like it was like staged, like it was just like so unbelievable.
It feels that way. And if you listen to more of his episodes, you go, what are these people's incentive to be on here? Because you're basically just grist for the mill. You go on so that he can shred you, and that's his content, and that's how he makes money. But what's with these people? Like it felt like the old school daytime TV stuff. You know what I mean? Or like reality TV. You know?
Exactly. And you know how like for a while there on social media and stuff, like people would have like these videos that would go viral because some crazy was happening, and so some people was like, well, I'm gonna just make something crazy happen that way I can have like some viral content. Like it felt like that kind of stuff. But to answer your question though, where I want to start with it, so I guess we can start right here, like from like let's hit the misconception dead on. So why do you think someone outside of the ball python industry would think that the ball python industry is a pyramid scheme? Anybody who want to jump in can jump in.
Number one, they probably think it's ridiculous to spend more than $5 on a snake.
But for one, this guy looks for pyramid schemes. Like, you know, it's one of his themes, you know, because it's all about financial stuff. So he's always looking to point out some stupid pyramid scheme somebody got into, you know, but beyond that, if you look at the way it works, it really doesn't help that in a lot of ways it is shaped like a pyramid. The difference being, though, that the people at the bottom aren't constantly, the person at the top is not getting a little bit of revenue off of every person at every tier underneath, which would be a pyramid scheme. The thing about our industry that like that guest didn't bother to mention is that people like him may have gotten into it because they're like, oh, way to make money. The people that fail at this the most are people who see it as, oh, a way to make money. People that thrive at it are like, oh man, I could keep a reptile. That's really fun and interesting. Similar to a fish tank or a vivarium or a greenhouse. It's like the interest is, can I learn about this thing and keep it perfectly? And you get a lot of enjoyment out of that. Then the next step is you're like, oh wait, I could breed this. And then the bug that catches most people is, all right, I've bred this. Oh, now could I breed this harder to breed species I haven't bred before?
Yeah.
And ball pythons basically just encapsulate that within one species, which is, I made this and then I made that. But whoa, that guy made that. I want to hatch that.
Or what if I make some?
Correct. Or what if I brought that into this? I think I could create something nobody's seen before. And that's the driving force of most of the hobby. You know, like the hobby, I think it's hard for your layman person to understand that, or the uninitiated, that essentially the hobby is breeding. It's really a genetics hobby. Like it starts with keeping and then it goes to breeding and then it goes to refining breeding. And you know what I mean? Like the hobby isn't just, how do I make a snake to sell to these 5 other breeders? The hobby is the breeding itself, you know?
Yeah, it used to just be selective breeding and then morphs came
Yeah.
along. And then it was easier to make crazier things. But people always wanted to, look, I could probably make this one a little bit better. You know, the next generation. The hypoboas, and they used to call them F1, 2, 3 as a generation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Well, and early on, the reason they did that is because early herpetoculture was about, everything was wild caught. So it was a big deal to get an F3, you know, like it was something that has been, you know, bred in captivity here in your native country of origin, not just once, but then twice over. And then those babies that were all captive babies bred again. And that was the beginning of this hobby. I mean, going all the way back to like the 70s and 60s, the interest was captive propagation, you know? And the way they framed it in that podcast just, again, did us no favors, you know? They make it seem like all you're doing is buying them so that you can, because if you make them, then you sell them to these other breeders. But I mean, I think anybody that's bred ball pythons long enough can tell you, you could make an 8-gene combo that is just trash. And even though where the ingredients to make that are worth more than the end result that you made because it sucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
like I could see,
you know, chasing novelty, you know?
Say again, I'm sorry.
I said a lot of it's chasing novelty, you know? It's like you get into it and you're always looking for the next novel thing. Like I mean, I think any of the 3 of us wishes we could breed Boland's pythons, you know?
Oh, yeah. I love it.
I mean, there's a lot of things that if I won the lottery, I would have in a collection, and I'd be trying to breed it for no money.
Honestly, a lot of us doing it, you know, years ago, most of us had multiple species. We didn't just have ball pythons. We had, you know, we'd have lizards, we'd have snakes, we'd have this. We didn't try to have a bunch of the same thing. We would try to have 1.2 of everything. Yeah. I mean, that's how it used to be until you had, you know, nowadays you can't own that many species because with morphs, you'd have to have a building per species.
Well, like you said before, it was more about like kind of line breeding, trying to make things better. Then you got all these morphs and then everybody are making these things. Everything is different. You constantly can make something different. And that was the big appeal for the ball pythons to really move forward. And like a lot of the other, and like now, even some of the other species, you know, like with the Burmese and stuff like that, the reticulated, now that you can do more stuff with them too, there's so many more genes out there. It just makes it more exciting and people want to work with some of this stuff more. You know, I mean, I think it's definitely a good thing.
I'd love to get into some pied worms if Florida didn't suck.
So I wanted to circle back to my comment about the market being shaped like a triangle. And what I mean by that,
I was going to circle back to that. So I'm glad you did.
Is that you can, all right. So in this person's argument, right, this Caleb guy's argument of this being a pyramid scheme, it's essentially that, like, you know, you're duping somebody else into buying something, right? But let's say there was, let's just say the first champagnes or the first leucistic ball python to come out of Africa. There was a bunch of people that were like, that is rare. I've never seen that before. I'm just interested in reptiles. I want that. And that's what made the price what it was. And so basically you have the person at the top of the pyramid that, let's say, brings in the first, let's use the super fire, right? Like the first leucistic. You bring that in, you paid $100,000. your goal is not to breed that and sell a bunch of babies for $100,000. Your goal is to breed that, make some combos and make things for yourself, and then take those babies and sell 10 babies that are $50,000 a piece. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
And then each of those people that bought that, as you make your way down the pyramid,
and they had an investment.
Right. They spend $50,000. Their goal is to breed that animal and sell 10 babies that are worth $20,000 a piece. And then, you know, you like the maths. You know what I mean? It makes sense. There's a lot of gambles as far as genetic odds and the health and vitality of your animal, but that's kind of also what makes it exciting. That's what working with living things, whether it's a plant or an animal, is. You know what I mean? It's, for some reason, I think it adds to the interest in a way.
Right.
But anyway, long story short is that so it brings its way down the pyramid, right? Until you get to the bottom level where anyone could access a super fire now for a couple $100. But it started at 100,000. And there is money to be made laterally all the way down through that.
100%.
Like, as these guys at the mid tier are selling to these guys below them, right, at lower prices, the guys way up here at the top are still selling all those animals at those prices. And now they're making combos with the heterozygous form that nobody even realized was going to be a phenomenal additive to so many things. We're sitting here in 2025. Fire is still a gene that is, like, I just saw the Fire Pompeii that Rice Family Reptiles made, right? Fire, a het, you know, black-eyed Lucy is to this day a desirable animal in the right combos, right? You know, and it's just unfortunate there was nobody there that could push back against this person. Although I don't think those are the guests that he ever has on. Like,
right, no, not at all.
I checked out, yeah, every show that I checked out, it's just him stomping on people the whole time. So
yeah, they definitely had a misunderstanding of the way the industry works. Like, it's not even by definition a pyramid scheme, because like with a pyramid scheme, like the only way you make money is bringing other people in, and then those people got to bring people in, and so on and so on and so forth. And like you said, man,
people just come in out of interest. You know what I mean?
100%. 100%.
It sound like someone knocked on his door and talked him into buying a bunch of snakes.
Yeah.
Yo, bro, I got an 8-ball python.
Which every now and again does happen, but that's less than 10%, I think, of overall market sales. Like in anything, you know, you might have, like Jason's, you know, great with construction. You know, you might have a guy who's like, hey, Jason, I've got the money, or you've got the money. I'll put up this, you know, what, I don't know. I'm confused that whole metaphor all up. You have those guys who are like, let's say Jason was already in construction, and he's like, hey, Barry, you've got more capital than me. If you buy these tools, you can make some money off them. But in the meantime, I'll make us both some money while I use them. You know, which it kind of sounded like there might have been some of that in that, you know, in this guy's whatever deal he made for $7,000. There's just a whole lot of questions that aren't answered in this. So,
yeah, like I wonder who
part of the, you know, the juice of the conversation. They didn't give us the whole conversation.
Yeah,
nah, they didn't. They did not at all. Like, not even on the full episode did they really get into like those kind of details that really matter, like for contextualization of what his experience was. Yeah, like what did you buy? He mentioned that the stuff he did buy, he bought babies, and it was growing up, and while it was growing up, the price decreased. And so he mentioned all that kind of stuff, but he didn't talk about what he bought, like what his plan was, like what his plan was to like recoup his investment, whether or not he did his research, because it's not a get rich quick scheme. You know what I mean? It's not something you can just, I mean, you can buy your way up higher on the quote unquote pyramid, and you can do that, but that's not the story for most people. Like, you got to put in some work. And even if you buy in high, with like high-end morphs and stuff, it's still work that goes along with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like if this guy was really interested in herpetoculture and he was down to grind at this for a few years, odds are that $7,000 would have just become kind of the foundation of how he cut his teeth in this market. And then a couple of years later, he would find the right male or the right group of animals to plug into the foundation he already built, and then it's all worthwhile. You know what I mean? But he had I don't even think he had the concept of that. Like,
I don't think so either. It didn't sound like it. Like, he didn't sound like super confident that he really knew what he was talking about the ball pythons. He just knew kind of like what I want to call it, like, I don't know, cliff notes.
Yeah, the fact that he referred to the male, that he's like, well, my male was like this big, but now it's like this big, so it's breedable. It's like he just, I mean, it sounded really bad, but again, going back to the whole episode, like it's hard to listen to, like, you know, like him and his wife, and they, you know, there's like no communication. There's 1,000 other problems before you get to ball pythons. So, and the fact that the host referred to it as like breeded snakes.
Yeah.
Did you buy breeded snakes? Like, what even? And it's weird.
And then the whole day trading app. I'm assuming they're talking about Morph Market.
Yeah,
but,
the word market must have set that off.
Right.
You a little bit of research.
Apparently you can day trade ball python.
The prices do change day to day a little bit, but it's not like a stock.
It's not day trade.
He had no ability to explain the fact that he's like, well, yeah, you buy these at this price, and you know that the price, you have no control over like it's a hobby business first and foremost. It's all about supply and demand, and demand doesn't always hold steady. Sometimes it increases, sometimes it decreases, even if the supply stays the same. And it's like, it's one of those things where you bought in here because you wanted to acquire these sets of genetics so that 3 years from now, you can be making these whole totally different sets of genetics by combining these three. And that's what you'll be bringing to market. You're not just trying to reproduce the same thing that you bought. And the reason you buy when you buy is because you don't want to wait another year and another year and another year for the prices to get into a range where you're comfortable buying. If you have the coin, you buy now so that you can get to making those combos to bring to market, you know, sooner.
100%. Would y'all agree or disagree that in terms of the quote unquote the pyramid, the bigger that foundation of the pyramid gets, the better it is for the rest of the industry? What are your thoughts on that?
100%. The other thing that I wish you would have touched on is the size of the reptile industry. And then if you really want to extrapolate, that starts to overlap with a little bit of aquatics and a lot of like terrarium stuff. And once you like start building that out, I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I mean, when US Arc did the first impact study on the reptile industry in like 2009, 2010, I think it was 10. I mean, it was in the billions of just the reptile-centric pet trade in America. That includes the tanks, the heaters, all of the husbandry equipment, and supplies, and the animals themselves.
And possibly rats.
It's an enormous. No, that's not counting feeders, because feeders are used across so many different mediums. You know what I mean? The rodent industry is its own thing. So,
and that's just an astronomical number considering like how small of a subset of the population that reptile keepers actually are. Like 4%, I think is the number that I saw.
Yeah, it's small, very small.
But the fact that if you look at it from the early days of the, like, there was people.
It was smaller,
way smaller.
I mean, but there were people out west and down here in Florida. At least these are the examples that I can think of in the 50s, collecting colubrids, collecting rattlesnakes, collecting things, and then finding like-minded people, even though it was a very tiny group, and coming together and trying to keep these things in captivity, learn about these things, and eventually propagate these things.
That's the fascination of it.
Yeah, some people have
been fascinated.
Yeah, some people have golf, some people have bird watching, some people are reptile weirdos.
My parents wouldn't let me have a dog or a cat, so I had and then I was allergic. So then I just caught shit in the yard. I had an old corn snakes and whatever crap you could find, and eventually bought a ball python, you know, when I was like 15. But like, I mean, they're easy pets for parents to deal with because they don't take so much care like a dog or a cat. And those kids end up getting interested in it and probably move on to, I want a better one or a different one. I'll go to these shows.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say about the subsect of people that are into this is if you look at it from the 50s, you can see it grow. And then like the early days of like Bill and Kathy Love and the Herp societies in Florida by like the 80s into the 90s. And then it just keeps going, you know? And then by the 2000s, I mean, by the late 90s, there was rudimentary internet stuff. And by the early 2000s, I mean, if you could have showed somebody the interest in reptiles in, let's just say 2002, from somebody that was collecting, you know, Theri back in 1955, their mind would be blown. like this industry seems to just keep growing because as human beings, we have a lot of different interests, you know, and and also I think a lot of us are nature deprived, right? Like there's a lot of people that live in cities and you work a job, and it's like it is hard to afford that lifestyle of moving out to the country and living the lifestyle you want. I mean, it takes a lot of money in today's world. And so like you have a lot of people that are looking into like plants and terrariums and reptiles and fish because they're trying to bring nature into their urban environment. And I think that that's only going to grow.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I hadn't even thought about it like that, but yeah, that does make perfect sense.
Teach their kids less hate for snakes as the generations go.
Say that again.
People are teaching less hate for the snakes and reptiles as the generations come along. You know, where back in the day it was like, don't ever touch a snake, you're gonna die. You know, and then, you know, as you see younger and younger kids just walking right up to them and picking them up, not afraid at all. You know, it's all taught to you to hate them.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. And then that really goes back to what I was talking about earlier with the social media and the added exposure that gives like this industry to people. People see it because I know that's what pulled me in. Like I'm a living example. I was scrolling down my feed and I saw a guy working with a snake that piqued my interest. And I remember like back in the day, my old roommate used to have a couple ball pythons, but at that time I wasn't like dealing with no ball pythons because of fear that I had learned. You know what I'm saying? I was scared of snakes. I ain't want nothing to do with that. But that's what got me in. Then I went down the rabbit hole, start seeing all the morphs. Next thing you know, I'm on YouTube and looking at all the videos, and then I found morph market, and my life ain't never been the same since. But that's how you can get pulled in. And so I'm a perfect example of how having that additional exposure helps grow the hobby.
Yeah. Meanwhile, when I got my first car, dude, I didn't even Google back then. I was trying to find every pet store in the Central Florida area I could to just go and see what they had. Because I am not the quickest to adapt to technology. I'm not the technology board. So I remember going on King Snake for the first time, and my mind was blown. I was like, you can order these online and get them shipped to you. Blew my mind.
We used to go.
Yeah, it blew my mind too.
We used to go to Daytona when we were kids, but it wasn't Daytona. It was the Orlando version, National Reptile Breeder Expo or whatever. But we would collect price lists because there was no internet websites and shit. So we'd come home with price lists. And a couple of my buddies ordered shit from Glades Herp, which was in, South Florida, and they ordered some Cow Kings or something. And I was like, people just send that in the mail. I mean, it made no sense. It makes no sense to people outside of us.
Yeah.
But once you get drawn in, it starts making sense. But everyone at work, I bring my shipments to work, and then I ship them after work, and they're like, "You just ship them in the mail?" I'm like, "I overnight that." Like I have to explain this stuff all the time.
Yeah. I mean, you try to do it, but
they're always like, "How many do you have? How many do you have? What do you do? What do they eat? What do you do with them?" It's like all these questions you constantly have to answer. They don't get it, but
I drive around with them in my trunk, waiting for the prices to get up.
Wait for the price to go up.
Slanging.
Stopping at gas stations trying to hawk them. Hey, I got my boss don't know about these.
Yeah.
Right. I got what you need.
Yeah. The fact that, I know why he used the reference to day trading, right? Like he's a financial podcast. He just brings it straight to the most, topical,
relatable term.
And it was funny. You know what I mean? So it gets drafted. But what really pisses me off is if that just would have gone a different way, right? Like if he would have brought that information to Theo Von in a different way, where he's not just, shitting on everything. And then Theo Von goes down the rabbit hole. He was on the Joe Rogan Experience like a week later. And he mentioned a little blip about the ball python thing. But that could have been such a positive. Sure. Such a positive for us versus a negative for us. It just would have taken the right type of influence instead of coming at it from a negative, aspect. Because if you know anything about Joe Rogan, he's a hobby guy, whether it's pool or Doom or video games
or bow hunting, whatever.
Bow hunting. Yeah. Like this this could have been a great opportunity for us. And instead, I don't think it's gonna be a huge negative. It's a big deal for all of us to talk about. But I mean, I don't think it's gonna have any gigantic real world impact on our hobby, but it's a real missed opportunity for a serious positive impact on our hobby.
Yeah,
It was
100%.
It was sent to me, and I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was funny, man.
I
Like,
mean, I just shook it off like whatever. That's hilarious. You know, it made no sense, but I understand how random people finding a YouTube video about this and then getting turned off, maybe, or thinking that people are ripping people
right.
off.
The unfortunate thing is we now are going to have possibly 10 million people exposed to this.
But I don't think the market relies on that as much as it relies on people who just have the fascination for reptiles and want to just peek in a little bit closer.
I will say that I don't think it would dissuade anybody that is already like starting to get obsessed. You know,
yeah, 100%.
If you know anything about the hobby, for sure, right? I mean, if you're in it at all, just a little bit, you know that's not.
Yeah. Although it could, you know, lead to somebody's spouse being like, absolutely not. I heard about this on TikTok. Hell no, you know, and
I
it's like
guarantee a lot of wives have shut this stuff down.
Yeah.
Maybe the
Oh
husband.
yeah, oh yeah. You'll start getting messages on Wolf Market. I gotta ask my wife and then come back. Well, my wife saw that Theo Von clip, so I can't do it.
Yes. Yeah. And Theo's got a big reach of honestly a lot of young males that would be kind of in the typical demographic of somebody that might get interested in reptiles. So it bums me out, but I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know. We have bigger fish to fry than a Theo Von podcast.
So you're saying that guy's a financial expert, right?
Not Theo, but the Caleb guy.
guy.
Caleb Hammer
I
guy.
don't know shit about stocks. I have a 401k, but I don't know shit about stocks. So I invest in reptiles because I know that market.
Yeah, fair.
If that makes any sense. So to me, I can work in the reptile market, so I feel more comfortable spending my money on reptiles than I do going out and just going to buy some more random stocks. So it's kind of what you know and what you're into too. Like if I wanted to know stocks, that would have to be my hobby, would be going home and looking at stocks and learning about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can invest in other things. You just have to be educated about it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Well, and ball pythons, reptiles, I'll bring it over to any other animal or plant hobby, right? Coral. It's like if you're in a market, it's not that different than gambling on a stock, right? Like you see something, it has an IPO, you know, the first time it comes out, what would it cost for me to buy this morph? And you're making your decision based on your knowledge of market trends, your knowledge of genetics. You've bred enough things that even if you're not super educated on genetics, you have a pretty good idea of how this might interact with X, Y, and Z, right? And it's like, so what Barry's saying is not that far off. It's like you are kind of gambling on a stock, because if you pick the right one and the rest of the market sees like, oh, it's doing a lot of good work in this project, that project, and there's a lot of market demand for it, that was a good stock pick. You're going to make a great return.
I bet people lose a lot more in the stock market than they do in the reptile market.
Depends on the person.
Do you guys feel like some people bought into like get rich quick scheme hype when getting in?
Yeah, but
I'm sure, and they bought it at the height of the economy. I mean, it's all related to the economy because snakes are a want to have, not a have to have. So the main reason that the market is the way it is now is because the economy's been so bad. So you don't have extra money to blow on some things that aren't have to haves.
Yeah, it's a hobby. It's a hobby market.
And when you're in the show with with what you're saying about the pyramid thing, when you're at a show, there's a lot of other vendors like, man, if I do better tomorrow, I'm going to come buy that thing. So we need a huge crowd of people who want pets to come in for the next level and the next level. And then the pet people eventually go, hey, I want to, get some better stuff and try some breeding.
Which goes back to what he was saying about this market does the best when that bottom rung of a pyramid shape is huge. The strongest and the largest. Yeah. The bigger that is, the stronger that is, the better everything else is, in this market.
Yeah, and a lot of those snakes too. I mean, we're not just all breeders too in the hobby, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that just want really nice snakes as pets, and they'll buy a $1,500 snake, and they want to get another $1,500 snake just because they want something that's different. They want something that's cool.
Novelty,
and it's, there's still a place for anybody to make money, but it's like, there's a lot of people in here that just want to have fun too. You know, that they don't really care
100%.
about making any money. You know, it's just about passion for them. So
I was at a Repticon in like 2001 or 2, and this mom came in with this kid, and they wanted an albino ball python, and they were $3,500 that time. This kid didn't know anything about snakes. They bought that snake for $3,500.
Oh wow.
It was Cypress Tom from Cypress. You remember Tom Carlton?
Yes.
Cypress something. I forget the name.
Cypress Creek Reptiles?
Yes. So, you know, I was at Tampa Repticon, and somebody came and dropped $3,500, and back then that was a lot more than $3,500 is now. I mean, that might as well have been a 10 grand snake.
I mean, when I was breeding other species, just working with like Amazons and Dumerals and Sambos and stuff, I knew a kid that his parents bought him a pied when they were $10,000, and bought him a couple of big normals, and bought him an albino, and they ended up saying, and bought him a freedom breeder, which was like unheard of to me at the time. And I just kind of like watched all. So I was a ball python market observer for a long time before I was, buying ball pythons. And in the end, I ended up they paid me to come over and feed it all for them because he was too busy doing other stuff because his interest changed a year later. And none of that stuff ever reproduced. Like some of it maybe, but I knew those people, that it's an economy of scale. Some people can afford to dump that money into a small interest for their kid, whether or not the kid does anything with it. And hey, that benefits our market. And I mean, I still know that family. They're still doing great. Nobody lost their shirt, but the majority of people in this are not those people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So would you guys say you agree or disagree with this? Like, do you feel is the responsibility of like more tenured breeders who kind of been around the game for a minute, like they know the ropes and whatnot, to help educate the newer breeders that are coming in so they kind of understand the process and understand like what they're signing up for, kind of the way they go about it?
Yeah, I agree with that.
I would totally agree with that. But at the same time, sometimes you will put that information out there and they're not trying to hear it. And that's a lot of times. And that's not your responsibility to say, no, I decline your purchase. And they just walk one table over and make the same purchase. But it is your responsibility to inform them. Like, oh, hey, you've never kept a reptile before? Are you sure you want to buy a $10,000 snake? You've never kept a reptile before. I don't know if this, you are obligated to do a level of that 100%.
So I'm an auto mechanic, right? And people think auto mechanics take advantage of people, right? That's like a stigma.
Stereotype.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they all take advantage, Jason. So, like when I'm working on a car, I don't sell people things I wouldn't do to my own car. I look at the car and I'm like, this is what I would do if this was my car. Same thing with snakes. If I'm behind the table and they're talking to me about projects, they're obviously into something I'm into if we're talking. And I don't sit there and try to hide secrets or send them down the wrong road. I'm like, well, my plans are to do this or that. That's what I would do. But I mean, anything goes. But I would never try to talk somebody into buying something that they don't want or
don't need.
Steer them in the wrong direction just so I can make a sale or something.
I've had conversations at Tinley where it's leaning towards this person's going to buy this animal, and they end up saying like what project they're going to put it in, and I'm like, I don't. Maybe you don't know this, but that's going to end up with bad results. And a lot of times they don't, and they may or may not end up buying another animal. But that is like, if you're going to be a professional in this industry, you absolutely should be doing that. You shouldn't just go, "Ooh, that's going to be a train wreck. Give me your money."
It happens pretty often too. If they're open enough to talk about what they plan on doing with it and stuff like that. I mean, I've talked out tons of people from buying snakes. I've had people try to buy real expensive snakes as their first snake too, and literally just put it back, just walk around, think about it. No, I want that one. I'm like, just give it 10 minutes. I'll mark it on hold. And they're just like, literally trying, like, just think, and they, they'll barely get down the road, they'll come back and they're trying to buy it again. I'm like, all right, well, if you really want it, so. But it's crazy,
Do those people like when you've had that happen and they end up getting the snake, do they ever like double back to you? Not necessarily at the show, but like reaching out to you for advice and stuff like that?
Yeah, sometimes they will, and a lot of times, like, I'll talk to them about it, especially if it's a first purchase, and it's something of, 35, 45, $5,000. I'm definitely going to ask them some questions and see what they're going to do, just to make sure they're going to do, something that's, like I said, if you want to do it for yourself, just because you want to make something and you like the way these things look, that's fine. If you're going to do it financially, I'll push you in the right direction of what's maybe trendy, what's its best, what you could breed it to the best to make the best possibilities. So it all depends on that particular customer, but I always try to make sure that they go off and it's all good. And I always answer questions. And, usually those people that you spend that extra time with, you try to get them to take a break. I mean, they usually come back and buy more snakes, just because they like the honesty and the back and forth. So they kind of know that they're making the right moves.
Or at the very least, they don't end up leaving this hobby 6 months later with a really bad taste in their mouth.
Right.
That's what you don't want.
I see the same people back at Jason's table every year because I do, Orlando or Daytona with them, and I do some Tinleys with them, and it's always the same people coming back to see what he's got. It's like there's definitely a loyalty thing.
It's usually to see Jen
in this market.
Yeah, especially Jen.
Well, there's that too. Like the boa people, because Jason, does boas, but doesn't have them very much. The boa people always come back bothering him about when you have more boas.
They're loyal. Boas. They're very loyal. And I've let them down for a couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
I used to have a blue tongue skink on my sign or on my banner just because I really love I love multi-species stuff. And my plan, you know what they say about the best laid plans, right? Like, so I went along and I had twins, and then those kids start to grow up, and then life really takes hold. And plans kind of, your timeline gets a lot longer all of a sudden. But my plan was always to have 2 or 3 separate buildings and some outdoor enclosures and work with much more than just one species. But then you've got to figure out what you're doing with your time and how to, if you're going to build a life where you can spend a lot of time inside this hobby and still at least to get to be adjacent to those species, talk about those species, do that stuff, you've got to make the best choices you can. And then eventually down the line, that plan will eventually come together, I hope. But I used to have a banner that had quite a few different species between like Lechianus and leaf-tails and blue-tongue skink on there. And the amount of people coming over asking me about Europlatus or Lechianus or blue-tongues. And I'm like, I used to breed those. Those are my animals, but I don't have them anymore. And it's like, so I eventually had to scrap it. But yeah, same thing with you and boas.
Yeah, my logo is a boa.
Yeah.
I would love to get back into some other species. Like I've been him on Angolan pythons for a long time.
I love them.
And they're affordable too.
I know. I need them to like fall in front of me or somebody like want to trade something for them.
Yeah.
But I really would love to work with Angolans, and they have no morphs, and I know that, and I would like to just try selective breeding.
But that again, that goes back to what I was saying about that is the foundational interest of this hobby, is propagating something new for yourself to see that you can set up the right conditions, set up the right conditions for incubation, and then actually hatch those offspring and get them to thrive. Like that is the core interest that that guest failed to convey to that Caleb Hammer guy.
And I bet if we had like 10 Angolan pythons on the table at these shows, they'd probably sell, because it's not like you find them everywhere.
Yeah. No, they sell great, and they feel amazing with their little keeled scales. Yeah.
So anybody can answer this, but if y'all had the opportunity to talk to Caleb, like say he was like, those ball python guys, they're saying I was making up this BS and blah blah blah, I'm gonna invite one of them on the show. And so if y'all had an opportunity to talk to him about like this market, what would be your approach?
Well, I think for one, you have to be a lot more forward and confident than that guest was, because as you can see, one thing about him, if you look at his videos, when he's on anyone else's podcast, he is not the same like obnoxious a-hole that he is on his podcast. Yeah. So that person exists. So first thing I would do is try to, maybe be a little more confident in what I'm saying. But I would basically, like I've been laying out, I mean, I would absolutely lay out the foundational interest of why does somebody want to buy a ball python in the first place? You know what I mean? Well,
you could do it probably, it wouldn't take 10, 15 minutes to probably change his mind if he would actually listen. I mean, it's just, everything is, I mean, what the people told him obviously wasn't enough, and his take on it, which is ridiculous, You know, it wouldn't take very much, I don't think, to sway him if you actually talked about things.
I don't
the
think
passion part.
I don't think I'd entertain him. I feel like it'd be
I would in 2 seconds.
I feel like it'd be talking politics to somebody trying to convince him to change. No, it's not gonna work.
Yeah. Well, especially if he doesn't like snakes and he's scared of snakes and he'll never wrap his mind around it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's not worth my time.
I mean, he gets off on being, you know, his whole gimmick is being the smartest guy in the room, right? You know, so you just have to try to
and he
level.
knows absolutely nothing about the subject.
Well, he was way smarter than both of them, so.
Well, fair.
I think that he was just whipped. Is what the problem was.
There was a lot going on there.
Who we talking about here?
The guy on the guest who bought the snakes.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. That was absolutely insane.
Yeah, and they're like in financial collapse, and then and he's like, "Well, how do you think you guys are doing?" And the guy's like, "Terrible." And she's like, "All right." And it's like for the whole time she's yelling about their finances, and then he's like, "Wait, why would you say that?" She's like, "I don't work. I still stay home. As long as I stay home, all right." I was like,
yeah, it was crazy. Like it was, like I said, it was unbelievable to me. Like it just seemed staged. Like it was so crazy. I just can't imagine anybody acting like those two.
Don't spend your last dollars on snakes. I mean,
yeah.
If you got $7,000,
it's money that you could
years.
lose or not. I mean, don't spend a rent check on a freaking snake.
Right. Yeah. But that goes for everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like buying anything, a car part or any. Well, car part's probably a necessity, but like any kind of non-necessity.
Not. There's lots of them there aren't.
But you don't need those new fancy shoes. You can pay your rent, you know?
Yeah.
People collect shoes. I don't get that thing. The whole collect Nikes and put them on the wall. You'll never wrap my mind around that. Put the shoe on your foot and walk in it. Yeah. So I think that those people are crazy. So,
but see,
that's a similar pyramid scheme to me.
I would go into, but it's not a pyramid scheme. It's a hobby that has baseline interest that draws in new people, which makes it not a pyramid scheme.
If he's calling ours a pyramid scheme, it's the same thing.
Right. And so he asked, what would you do to convince this guy? For one, I would be armed with a lot of information about other hobby businesses that not just exist, but thrive and have thrived even greater in the age of the internet. And we're one of them. But shoes, trading cards, all
Pokemon,
kinds of
all
things.
that stuff.
And then the ball python industry been around for decades. Like pyramid schemes don't last that long. Not anyone's up familiar with.
Like 33 years since the first albino.
I know a ball python guy who moved into just doing Pokemon and X-Men cards and crap instead. It's his investment.
So one thing I want to say is, like you were like, we've been around this long. Pyramid schemes don't last that long. So one thing about pyramid schemes is it is almost always incumbent on you, the seller, to go attract someone and give them reasons they need to get into it. Like nobody came to Jason and was like, dude, what you need is a snake.
Yeah.
If you get these, you make more money. I don't know anybody that has gone out and got a customer that way. The customers come to us because they have an interest in the first place.
Exactly.
I did go up to him with the overcoat and I was like, hey, you want some ball?
Jay and Silent Bob style. Yeah. We just got a bunch of little things like there, like some eggs. You can hatch this baby in 30 days.
Oh, people selling eggs. Remember that?
I don't remember anybody selling eggs.
People were selling eggs.
Really? Like ball python eggs?
Like snake eggs. That was a thing at one time. People
like unhatched snake eggs. Chameleon eggs were a thing for a long time because they're
send them to your house.
I'm not gonna lie though, like
I heard about that.
From a standpoint, it is cool as hell that you can do that with a chameleon egg. I'm not saying it's good practice, but it is fascinating and cool that
you can do it with sharks too. You buy shark egg at the store, put it in your fish tank.
I did know that.
Yeah.
I bought a clutch of eggs one time. I drove like an hour and a half down the road. They all hatched out great.
Was it like that era? Like
it was a while back. It was probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
What was the clutch?
What were they? They were like some kind of like some fire bumblebees or something, and some ivory stuff in there too. So it was some kind of spider yellow belly fire or something. But I got good odds on it though. I did do good on it.
So I met Jason when we were young, and then I didn't meet him again for like, I don't know how many more years, another 5-6 years or something later. When I met him again, he had a Mojave and a bunch of normals, and that was the and maybe a pastel or two, but that was his collection. But at that time, Mojaves were cool, and he was doing well with it.
Yeah, that was when I got into ball pythons. I did other snakes first. But
Yeah,
I hated ball
that's when
pythons.
you finally got into ball pythons.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had anaconda back in the day.
Yeah, anacondas, retics,
Oh,
straight
yeah,
trees,
yeah.
Amazon.
dang.
I had all the cool stuff. I thought ball pythons were so boring, and they were. We would sell them all the time. We'd get the wild caught ones because that's most of what was around.
They're actually the worst feeding species of almost all the freaking snakes that you could have for pets. That's what annoys me the most.
Oh, for pets, yeah.
For because when you buy rats, I don't know how it goes with you, but it's like I've got mice, African rats, I've got rats. Like, you want a gerbil? What is it going to take? Please eat. They need a smorgasbord. They want the prime rib
your average pet owner, which although I do think again with the internet and the amount of information that's out there are a lot more pet owners that are used to the fact that okay, my ball python's not going to eat 12 months a year, especially once it's an adult. But Barry's got a point in the sense of if you're buying a king snake or a corn snake, it's going to be pretty easy. It's going to eat like clockwork.
They can eat those stupid sausage things that they sell in the store frozen.
Oh, you talking about like the reptile stuff?
Not even, it's not even a rodent. You go, here you go, California king, and he eats it. And then when you want to breed him, you just throw another one in there. And you don't do, like when I used to breed corn snakes, there was no temperature keeping in the cage.
But what's cool is I feel like the industry's evolved to where a lot of people now accept and understand how ball pythons eat. And I kind of like that they, for the most part, they have a governor that just kicks in. And they're like, no, I'm good. And, you have your problem feeders, but that could happen with anything. But, the fact that you can't really just obesitize them like you can with a lot of other species is a positive,
like the other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could put a boa right in the ground in 2 years. I mean, they'll eat nonstop.
Every time.
They'll kill themselves.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, boas. My boas.
Pythons put weight on fast. That's what's good. When they want to eat, it only takes like a month to put some weight back on.
Yeah,
that's
Heck yeah. Like I was saying, my boas, man, they be killing it. Like you don't want to like mess around. You need to be like on point when you feeding the boas. It's not like ball pythons. Like I can just kind of like casually do it. The boas, like I legit be focusing, making sure like I don't slip up or anything because
there could be some repercussions to that bite.
Yeah, I use a longer hook, longer tongs, everything.
Yep.
I will say what's interesting to me is that there is a certain pride if you are from a certain sector of this hobby. There is a certain pride in being able to work with hard to work with things. And I think that's something that all of us had in common getting into this hobby that was interesting to us. But now people live in this world where really they don't ever like their hobby can just be monolithic, just ball pythons or just crested geckos or just this or that. And whereas like we came from kind of a day and age where it's like there was something to being able to be bitten, musked on, shit on, and not complain. You know what I mean? And still handle the snake well. Snake's not harmed. You got what you needed done. You've got the snake back, and it's no big deal, And it's like now I see people and they're like, "What just came out of its butt?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's musk because you're restraining it." And they're like, "Ah!" And I was like, "Do you ever caught a garter snake?" No. Why would I go outside and look for snakes? I'm like, why do you have all these snakes in tubs?
When I used to work at that importer-exporter, me and my buddy Chris worked there, and they would have like arboreal type screen enclosure thing with a bunch of emerald tree bows in there.
Oh man.
And I would always be like, "Hey, we got to pack up some emeralds. I'll give you $20 if you don't get bit when you go."
Yeah.
And dude, you get bit by an emerald tree boa, that's a bad day.
Yeah, they got big teeth.
Yeah. I remember back in the day trying to wrangle wild caught blood pythons, adults.
Oh yeah.
That don't sound fun.
Yeah, but when you could do it well, there's a pride to it. Like I can't explain it. It's what makes us snake weirdos, man.
We had brought in a 12-foot and a green anaconda one time, and she was gravid, and we opened that bag and we're like, "What do we do with it?" That thing was angry, and powerful. That was a fun fight.
Yeah, one thing I will say is a lot of my thoughts on conservation were formed by being a late teen and going to the wholesale places. Because if you could find somebody that like worked at a pet shop and was going to go buy, you could hop a ride with them and go to like Miami and hit like a couple of them see all these amazing animals, but I don't know how you could see what was happening and not be like, oh, wow, that's amazing. And then how could this be good? Because there's dead ones at the bottom of the cage. There's all these animals coming in, not happy to be caught from the wild.
That's why I love captive breeding.
That's where I was going with it. Yeah. And then that ignites the flame for captive propagation.
The numbers of imported ball pythons now compared to back in the early 2000s when I was doing it are drastically different.
Yeah.
We had a small place, and I think we brought in 2,000 or 3,000 a year.
Oh, dang.
And they were like $3 a piece.
Yeah, they're cheap.
And Jason would come in too, and I would sift through them, have to hide them in places so him and his buddy wouldn't find them.
We didn't know about Morse back then. We were just trying to take the nice ones. They were fancy balls.
Around that time, yellow bellies were figured out for the ivory thing. But I guarantee I've seen black pastels and ivory and yellow bellies and different cinnamons and other different morphs come through there and not realized it, back then. I would just take cool stuff home and raise it up for a little bit, but I'd get bored fast. I was more into the red tails and different things back then that I'd bring home, but I feel better because there was a lot of death that would come in, like Asian box turtles were full of parasites and just all these things that would come in and all we did was turn around and sell it to a pet store. And then it died on those people and they had a bad experience.
Well, you look at
it's bad for the animal and all that's captive bred now and less imported, and that's what makes me feel better about this hobby and industry.
Well, that goes back to the whole concept that Caleb guy didn't understand, that the hobby, yes, it can be just keeping one animal, but a lot of it is captive propagation, and it's really positive because the more that you see healthy, good examples of captive bred animals, the less anybody wants to contribute to the wild caught market, which I think is super positive. I think importing has its purpose for rare novelties that wouldn't survive in the wild that we can then bring in, and it keeps
kind of a necessary evil.
Yeah. I mean, 9 times out of 10, that thing would have died in the wild anyway. Plus, you do need a certain amount of fresh genetics. Sometimes there's an argument to be made for that. But I look at Euromastics. I couldn't for the life of me understand back in like 2007, 6. I'd go to these import places and see the mass quantities of Euros that were brought in. And I couldn't for the life of me understand why someone wouldn't pay 3 times, 5 times more for a CBB, a US captive born and bred baby. And now I'm seeing it. It's like, I've lived long enough to finally see our hobby in this current generation of younger keepers that have elevated these standards. I know I made a lot of enemies. Like the first reptile shows I ever vended, it was just me. I would work for the show for free to help set up and put out signs and flyers. So they would give me a table and I could give out care sheets and hand out flyers about avoiding wild caught animals, which directly stepped on people's sales.
Yeah.
I was too young to care or understand.
Bad sellers back then.
And they all hated me. They're like, nerd, and they still hate me to this day. I'll run into them every now and again and they still hate me. I don't care. Like, I don't understand how you can't understand some of the problems,
Actually, something you said earlier, as far as when we were talking about the ball python guy that was on Caleb Hammer show, wasn't like a good representation of us, and it never really is. That made me think of something else, and then also the wild caught discussion. Have you guys been hearing about this new documentary that's coming out or supposedly coming out at some point, like made by?
About it. It's supposed to be like the Reptile Tiger King.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And I heard that started out as the Reptile Tiger King.
Yeah.
And
then you got sidetracked.
Folks' place, and they found the guy with the leopard instead, and went that way.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I knew it was coming because
I was going to say, I feel like we've all heard whispers of this since 2020.
And I have a feeling that they're not going to interview anybody who's good in the business.
Yeah, Justin Kabelka's not going to be on there.
No. And I mean, I get it. Like Tom Crutchfield's like a pioneer in this industry and people like that, but it's not going to come off well.
No.
Yeah, I heard somebody saying or saw somebody said that it wasn't supposed to be as inflammatory as some may think, but then I wonder, is that really going to be the case? Because oftentimes, like by making it like sensationalized and inflammatory and stuff like that, that's how you get views. And so
Yeah,
what is
that Caleb Guy's podcast is exactly a representation of what we're saying. I mean, it's never, look, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that anybody that's been in this a long time, I mean, it's been this way since I got in it. I mean, I think if you talk to somebody that's been doing it since the 80s, they'd say the exact same thing. You know, the media, like when it comes to content that's going to sell, you're going to get more eyes just across general demographics by being like, look at these freaking weirdos. Then you're ever going to be going, oh man, these people really care about elevating and cultivating this really crazy niche market and making things better and better and better and better. I can absolutely say without a shadow of a doubt, things have done nothing but get better over time, over the arc of time since I've been in this hobby.
For sure.
The amount of information that you guys have out there, because a lot of you have started since COVID because you had the extra time and money or whatever to get into it. But in our day, hot rocks, oh crap, that doesn't work. Light bulbs, hot rocks, gallon tanks. Yep. I mean, we didn't have the supplies. I mean, then the rack systems left and right, and we learned everything the hard way because the internet barely existed, and if it did, it was dial-up. Yeah. I mean, the amount of information you guys have makes the hobby 100 times better.
Dial-up, dude. Yeah. Do you remember reptibid.com?
No, I didn't go on that one.
Do you guys remember Reptibid? Oh my god!
Was that like the Wilbanks one?
Oh man, it was like right after eBay. It was when eBay was real hot, you know. And there was Reptibid.com. I remember going to a friend's house and getting on his computer because I didn't have one. I had my own apartment. I couldn't afford a computer, and so I went to his house where he had a computer, and it was on dial-up. And I remember this picture of a Bredli loading, and I was just like, "Oh my god, it's only at $250." I have $300 because that is what I had at the time. Yeah. And he had like $75, and we kept bidding and bidding. And thank God we didn't win because God, who knows what would have happened. But like, I remember the first picture of a Bredli online that I saw for sale was loading like this in dial-up.
That's hilarious.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I definitely don't miss dial-up.
Book or trial and error. I mean, there wasn't. I mean, I learned incubating from Dave and Tracy Barker's VHS tapes.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
That's how I learned how they showed you how they incubated stuff with a lot of like substrate and a very little bit of water and a piece of glass on top. So I started taping my egg boxes and barely putting any water on some perlite.
Yeah.
And now I literally have fully enclosed buckets? Rubbermaids. They were in like a trash can.
Hey, I was one step ahead of Barry. I had DVDs. So
snap.
No, I got the VHS tape, 2-part VHS tape from Dave and Tracy Barker. The ball python something is what it's called. I don't remember. But
that's old school for real.
That was like how I learned how to incubate eggs because I had corn snakes, but like we did vermiculite and it was always too damp, and there was no one to teach us, no one to ask. It's all.
And then one day Ralph Davis started making YouTube videos. And
Ralph Davis started making YouTube videos. Yeah.
I loved his going on his webpage and looking at every clutch and the results. I loved that the most. I wish more people did that. I think Justin does it. I have no idea.
It takes so much time.
But that was always cool to me. He's like, oh, he bred these two and it's that. Because if you go on Morph Market now, like probably 25% of the stuff's mislabeled. And it's like, well, if I could at least see what the clutch was, I could probably figure out what you got there and see if it's right or not. But like, they don't even say the pairings half the time, and then I'm just lost because I'm like, that's not what it looks like to me, or that's not what I'm thinking. Like. But it was cool that he did that. He was like a pioneer in web
100%.
But I do think it's worth pointing out though, like all kind of those hardships and trial and error that like y'all went through, like coming up then, like that really built the way for like folks now, you know what I'm saying, coming into it and a lot more information being out there and just being more accessible. Like you pair like kind of the trial and error, people being willing to share the information based on the experiences they had, and then you put that with social media, that's definitely made it like a lot easier to bring people in, get them acclimated, and hopefully keep them around.
And get them to take proper care of the stuff immediately and not have,
exactly
have these failures that we had.
I will say it was exciting though. Like I did like I don't research anything anyway. I'm not a research person, but like I like to do things and just figure it out. Like so back in the day, it was part of the fun of doing it because all the information wasn't out there. It's now when you're trying to make a really expensive clutch, it's nice knowing exactly how to do it. But back in the day, it was exciting.
But that comes back around to breeding new species, right? Like I guarantee you, something that almost anybody could do would be get like a pair of, children's pythons or spotted python, anything in the Anatrisia genus, right? And it's going to fit in with most collections, and it's going to give you, it's not a big challenge, but it's the reward of doing a little something new. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like just slightly more challenging than what you're already, set it and forget it used to doing.
That's why I got back into green trees, and that's why I bred green trees before, is because they were really, really hard to breed at the time. And it took me probably 3.5 years before I got my first clutch of eggs. I'm actually pairing like 3.5 years, so it was really rewarding when it happened, and then I did it successfully for another 4 years or so, and then I bought ball pythons.
I bred Eastern Hognose for a little bit, and that was very hard to find tiny little toads and to try to scent mice and stuff. So I stopped doing it because it was very difficult. But finding adult toads wasn't that hard, and having adult Eastern Hognose. But I love Eastern Hognose.
One of my favorites.
Those babies make you want to just kill yourself because they won't eat nothing.
I remember the first time I found a pair of captive bred Southern hogs, and it was the biggest deal. My buddy and I bought them. He kept them. We got a trio, and we did he eventually bred them. Getting the babies to eat was weird because it's frustrating, but also super rewarding. Same thing like what I was like saying about like the mini pythons, like the children's, or especially like the anthill pythons, right? Like you haven't lived until you've assist fed a mouse tail down a baby snake's throat.
Do
that to about 75 in a day and see how you feel.
Jason, how was it getting those neos from that clutch established? Like, did you have issues or?
And it was tough. I got lucky. First time incubating eggs, everything went. It was 26 eggs from this female, which is a ton of eggs for a green tree. And one of them was stillborn in the egg, full term though, like it was completely developed, just was dead in the egg. Everything else was fine, and it was really challenging to get them to eat. Like, the first week, none of them ate. The second week, none of them ate, and then it's like. Then I just I read more video or watched some videos and read some stuff, and like you just poke them, so I would just sit there, I'd get a chair, I'd get my music on, and I would just sit there and open it up and just lightly poke them with this red hot pink until they got so mad that they would take it. And when I did that, it was like I probably had about 80% of the clutch eat that week, and then the next week I started doing like little chick down feathers on some of the pinks, and the rest of them took right away. It was a challenge, but once I got my kind of rhythm, it was fine. And after that, once you kind of learn how to do it, wasn't bad.
Yeah. Is that the year that you accidentally cooled them down and they went?
No, I always used to cool everything.
Well, the 1 year you left them in the garage was like the best year.
One thing I will say is with those species, they can take a lot more cold than people give them credit for. Yeah. And most species benefit from some type of temporary cool down and brumation period.
Yeah, I'd keep the ball pythons and the green trees in the same room, and I would drop the room temps in that room, and I'd get down to probably like around like 74, 75 degrees, and everything. My success rate for breeding ball pythons is way up. The green trees did great. Everything like that temperature drop. But I warmed it up every single day too. It was only like a night drop of temp.
And you had a season instead of a year round.
Yes, everything was a lot tighter. Everything was
like most of our ball pythons were going year round, And
if you can,
the more you heat them, or the more you heat them up, the more year round you can go. The cooler you go, they all go.
I think what you mean to say is the more stable you keep their temperature, not the more you heat them up, because you don't want to do that. But stable and consistent, you keep their temperatures. You're going to get more of a bell curve of a season, But
I get two.
Yeah.
We get about 2 humps of cycles, but. It seemed like those colder winters we get, like this winter's pretty cold. I'll probably just end up with one good amount of.
Yeah, if you can commit, if you keep your babies and raise up separate from your breeder adults, and you can just commit to a hard brumation. I'm yet to see somebody whose collection doesn't benefit from it. Like as far as like productivity, or like fertility.
Gotcha.
This year, because we're in the new building, like the temps are a little bit different, and I haven't turned the heat on. So like even when it's really cold, the temps are dropping in the room to where we're like maybe around 75, but everybody's still on heat anyway.
Oh,
you know, but we're still getting a natural drop in temp in that room anyway. So I think it will probably tighten up my season a little bit more. Hopefully it will make it a little bit earlier because I've been going pretty late, but my seasons have been getting tighter and tighter. So
Have you started ultrasounding yet?
I ultrasounded at least maybe a month ago, and I didn't have much. I mean, I only had maybe 15 snakes that were like 10 to 15 millimeters, you know, but I only ultrasounded snakes that were first-time breeders. I didn't ultrasound any of the ones that I already had dates for. You know, if they'd already laid for me, I just kind of go off of that, and I try to pair like at least 5 months before that, or lay or whatever that date is.
I've never used ultrasound. I'm a palpator.
Palpate. I can't do it. I can do it. I say I can't do it, but I can do it a little bit better than I used to could.
I think I'm pretty good at it. It's about, you know, you're afraid to put too much pressure, I guess.
Yeah. I was the same way with popping too. Like at first, like I didn't want to like hurt the snake, and so I was scared to put, like, you don't have to put like a ton of pressure on it, but you have to like actually do something. But I was scared to do something because I didn't want to hurt the snake.
Yeah, I had to learn that when I worked at that importer exporter place, and then he taught us the boa thing where you kind of snap it to the side, and I always thought that was bullshit, and that's what they do actually. You
talk about the retraction.
You kind of, what do? Do something
you just grab it by the vent, you let light pressure, and you pull back, and the hemipene will roll, like you'll roll the hemipene.
Yeah. Once you hit the base, you feel the.
So the boa technique is not popping. It's something a little different. I haven't done it in a long time.
You can do it with an adult male ball python. I mean, you can easily.
Well, I can pop an adult male ball python.
Yeah.
So I don't try that.
I can.
Yeah,
I'm pretty good at popping. I don't know.
Once they get past a certain size, I can't pop them no more.
I like to pop my breeder male
first,
and I'll be like, oh, there's a plug in there, and then I leave it in there and I put it in, and then if I don't see them walk, I can look at a day or two later and pop it and go, well, the plug's out, so probably bred, you know.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's
and then I like to get down, throw it.
Yeah.
But no,
what did you say? I missed that.
He said he likes to take the plug out and throw it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's being gross.
No, I mean, like, it's beneficial if you can pop your adult males, because you can take the sperm castings and, like, you know, put them on the back of a female and then put a different male in there, try to stimulate some activity that way.
I can get the plugs out. It's about getting the hemipene out all the way.
Yeah, that's the same thing with me.
I can get part of the plugs to come out.
Everybody's got things they're good at, but I'm generally really good at sexing snakes. Like whether it was old school with probes, and if you're doing different species, you've got like the retraction method, popping method. Obviously, with very fragile, delicate species, you just don't want to get in there and pop them. But like, especially the more hardy a species is to me, the easier it is to confirm gender. You know, like
Jason likes to have me come over and double check his sexing. And then he likes to help me ID things, but they're mostly clowns, and I'm like, shit, I don't know, there's 17 genes in there.
Barry's got a good eye. See? He's got a very good eye for genetics.
So
but these clowns are getting nuts, dude.
Yeah, well,
like this red thread, yellow belly, fire.
I wouldn't call him over for help on IDing clowns, but puzzles all day long. Yeah.
Well, I just have Barry come over every time. We'll go through and we'll sex 100 snakes, and we'll ID hard ones.
But the fun part is he doesn't tell me what I'm looking at, so I like to just pull him out and rattle some shit off, and sometimes
he's usually pretty close.
That's pretty impressive.
I don't even know what he's doing.
He's got a good eye. So.
Yeah. Agreed.
I am
nice.
I will say, with this newer generation of herpers, ball python herpers especially, the ability to confidently sex or check the gender on animals, it is interesting to me. Like, I've had 2 customers that bought an animal, they brought it home, it was supposed to be a male, they bring it home, and then like about a year later, they're like, I don't think it's a male, I'm not getting peens. I had this another local breeder that I know come over and check it, they're not getting peens. And in one case, there was even another breeder that went over and checked it, not getting peens. I drive all the way out there, peens. And I'm like, dude, big healthy peens. I'm like, good go. I'm like, but all these newer gen breeders don't seem to be very good at, like, let's say, assist feeding finicky babies or popping animals. I don't know.
I would say it's probably because it's harder to
It's experience.
get the experience when you're watching videos to learn everything.
Yeah.
They're not
true.
getting
That's
hands-on
true.
experience from another
With,
breeder.
with
Typically,
the numbers of animals that we've had.
They're not trying not to get ripped off at like some weird import dog.
Yeah.
You know, like we were doing back in the day.
Yeah, like I've learned to pop really kind of like with a hybrid method. Like part of it was watching, like Billy had a video like back in the day that I took a lot of pointers from, but then it was a guy locally that like showed me how to do it in person, and like I got to practice doing it, and that just kind of helped solidify what I had saw in the video. So you definitely got to have, me personally, I got to have some hands-on experience to learn it.
It's a lot of experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I was timid at first, and that was 20 years ago at least. And I remember it being like, ugh.
you probably pop 10 times the amount of animals I've ever done.
but like I grew up with doing rat snakes, and you just looked at the tail and you could tell if it was a male or female.
I remember
there was no popping and stuff with corn snakes and things like that. It's very obvious.
I remember the first time that I went herping after I had learned to sex animals at a pet store I was working at as a teenager, and I would catch this black racer. Obviously, he's just biting the shit out of you, musking everywhere. And I was like, my buddy, I'm like, I wonder if we could sex this. And I go, bah, 2 big old peens, and I was like, whoa, we can sex stuff in the wild. That's amazing. I don't know what benefit you get out of it, but at like 17, that epiphany seemed amazing. I was like, we can find out for males and females, you know? And we never wild collected. That's something I've never ever done in my life, and I don't encourage. But it was just cool to do.
I love having this discussion with people who know I have snakes and ask me this question, but know nothing about snakes. And I have to tell them, well, you can kind of just pop them out of there, you know, like, yeah. And I don't even try to bring the 2-peen thing up. I'm like, well, if you squeeze its tail, you know, it kind of pops out, you know, but like, if I go into, well, it's got 2 peens.
Oh, I'm always bringing it.
Well, if you really want to get them, is you go from, you explain the bifurcated penis, and then you bring it back around to the fact that there are some mammals with bifurcated penises. They're marsupials. They're bridge species between reptiles and mammals, and it's just it. Then they're like, "What the fuck are you telling me?" I'm like, "Yeah, koala."
I didn't know that, so I learned something new too.
Nobody knew that.
Went to the popping koalas. Koala popper.
You can pop koalas in the wild.
I didn't know that either. That's
yeah.
I know platypus.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah. Look, I could go on for. My interest is evolutionary biology, and so yeah. I mean, now is not the time to get into it, but the transition species that we are lucky enough to still have left on this earth before we decimate everything are some of the coolest, most valuable species we have. Marsupials, being one of them.
That being said, I think zoos exist for a good reason, to captive breed stuff, and I hate that all these PETA places don't want anything in the captive breeding, because it will be extinct if it's not. If you let, like, Fiji Island iguanas are apparently endangered. If you let those be in the American market, there'd be so many of them, they would be telling us we can't have them anymore.
Yes, Barry mentioned zoos, but what he also meant was the captive interest. Like the Barkers wrote that book, The Invisible Ark. Are you familiar with that?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it though.
So it makes a really compelling case for why, yes, there are some bad actors in animal keeping across the board, any species, but by and large, the bulk of us make up this invisible arc that's going to help preserve species through time as we continue to just wipe them out. I mean, every year we are decimating, hundreds of species across the globe that we will not get back. And it's valuable to have a little time capsule of some of these species preserved. Like, you might see the day where you never see an Amazon milk frog ever again in the wild, but we have them preserved and well cared for and dialed in a captive market. So at least somebody can still see them, and we can be aware that they existed.
That makes perfect sense. Well, fellas, we rolling up on 2 hours, man. It's been an amazing show, man. A lot of good conversation around the main topic, and then a lot of good other conversation as well. So definitely appreciate y'all sliding through. This has been, like I said, super fun. And so all 3 of y'all are going to be in Atlanta, so it'll be 2 weeks from now. Looking forward to seeing you.
Barry won't. No.
Oh, you're not going to
All three
Atlanta?
of these cool guys will be there. Yeah.
I will be at March Tinley if anyone's going there.
I'm not making it to March 10th.
Everyone's going there.
If anyone's heard of that show,
It's a real rinky-dink show, Barry. I don't know.
I don't think to do a few
Talk about a local show? No, I'm kidding.
I would love to do Bob's show, being that we're friends and everything, but Valentine's Day is a kind of a hard.
I feel you.
It's my gift to my wife. I'm like, you're welcome. I'm gonna leave. She's like, thank God.
But I will try to show up at some of Bob's shows next year.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you was gonna be there.
Support him anyways.
All right, fellas. Well, that's gonna do it for tonight. Appreciate everybody sliding through tonight, rocking with us for these 2 hours, man. It's been a blast, man. I saw a lot of good conversation in the chat. Look like somebody got into it in chat too. I ain't dig into it too tough, but look like somebody got into it.
I was just paying attention.
Now take a time.
I mean, look,
say again.
My old man brain is like, I'm overwhelmed. Like, I'm just
like I'm not even the one pulling up the comments. Takar is pulling up the comments and stuff. I just happened to look on the side and see somebody telling people to chill out. I don't know what they got into it about. I missed that part. That's why I don't do the comments, because it's hard for me to focus on the conversation at hand. If I'm doing the comments, I'm just like, yeah. So I can't walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. So big shout out to Takar for holding us down, doing that. Shout out to Replay Gang, Audio Only Gang, all y'all. Make sure y'all leave that hashtag Replay Gang. That's gonna do it for tonight. For Clutch Conversations, I'm Mike. This is Barry. This is Winston. This is Jason. The lovely lady behind the scenes is Takar. Thank y'all for coming out. Be blessed. Peace.
See you.